Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. With Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. I bear witness that none is worthy of praise and thanks but Allah, and that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his servant and messenger and a mercy for all mankind. Welcome to Study Al-Islam community discussion on growing your personal and community wealth through land development and property ownership. Thank you to our distinguished guests, our panel. Thanks to everyone for joining, and a special thanks to the A-team, Naima and Kafi, for their continued support in helping to bring these kinds of invaluable programs to each and every one of you. Let us open with prayer, Imam Hatem Abdullah.
And Brother Imam, please unmute yourself.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Ameen. Thank you, Imam Hatem. We're going to get started, and I just want to share with everyone that the format will be the same as it was yesterday. If you would like to read the full bio of each of our panelists, you can visit studyalislam.com website, and you will find their bios there. The format today, each panelist will have up to 20 minutes to introduce themselves and share their PowerPoint. There will be a Q&A throughout the discussion. To our viewers, I held back from asking some of the questions from yesterday because I felt that this panel was more appropriate to answer. So those questions that did not get answered yesterday, I will pose to the will pose them to the panelists today. So we're going to start with our dear brother Zach, who was not able to be with us yesterday. Brother Zach, we are happy that you can be with us today, and we make dua for your family and for your brother, that Allah have continued mercy upon him. And please, it's open for you now, Brother Zach.
Shukran, Fitrah, and assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Again, I'm grateful and thankful to Allah to be here with you all because of the importance of this mission that Fitrah and Study Al-Islam is endeavoring. I want to thank everyone for their dua and their prayers for myself, my family, my friend and brother who I grew up with and had a duty of returning to the Allah, the creation, earlier today. I want to begin my presentation in choosing a community partner, and I kind of like flipped the whole presentation because I felt it necessary to, instead of coming at a theoretical point of view with the strengths, weaknesses, and obstacles and normal procedures, that I'll show a more pictorial presentation that will, present it in a more visual way. They say pictures is better than 1,000 words, and I want to thank my wife who's here with me, giving me my technical assistance as I move forward. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. So I'm in choosing development community development partner, I believe it's like a marriage, and that choice is two-sided. The potential partners that are out there really are looking at how you qualify and present yourself as someone they may choose. So it's a two-sided coin. So I wanted to show this history of Nicetown and begin there. We were founded in 1999 by a member of Collective Track of people with experience in developing communities that included housing, economic development, supportive services, small businesses, training, the whole nine. And we were headquartered here in Philadelphia on Germantown Avenue, and a building that I myself actually created with my family earlier in the early part of the 1990. And so that beginning, as it relates to being a business person, which I am, gave us the ability to have a certain outreach to various potential folk that, you know, would allow us to, you know, establish what we started as the Nicetown Community Development Corporation. So this was housed in our area. Excuse me. I'm having a little bit of, right, I'm sorry. So, I'm sorry. And so this, in this expanse of 40 years of our teaching with Imam W.D. Muhammad, you know, we, the Muslims in Philadelphia, were pursuing establishing education institutions, characteristics that identified us as a people. And we left negative elements and began nation building, of course, which we were taught under our leader, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And this led to our mission, which was to dynamically improve the quality of life in Nicetown and the surrounding neighborhoods by establishing effective and sustainable community economic development initiatives. We fulfill our mission with a holistic and inclusive approach to our goals and objectives that prioritize safety, mobilization through the re-education and training of affordable housing, commercial corridor revitalization, arts and culture, and land maintenance. And in order to do that, because of these communities, and some of you guys that are out there, your communities are probably underserved in depressed areas like ours. We did a whole feasibility study, and that study enabled us to grab the data for the various, what was the makeup of that community. And so we, as you see here in this demographic study, it indicates, you know, the population of this geographic area, and of course, those that are residing in this area, and how the area denomination was made up. In addition, through the population, it indicated also the households, our median household incomes, the median age, home ownership rate, estimated residential vacancy, and these things that, so that we would know what we were trying to identify and how we would pursue what would be the particular development strategies that were necessary for this particular geographic area and the demographics in this area. And so as you can see, that income household rate in that year of 2007 was about 30,000. And we show our median age there. So all of this information was very critical in order for us to determine the types of development that we were looking to do and the partnerships that we would be looking to identify to have us service this particular population. And in doing so, we had identified a particular location outside of our headquarters that we would be able to service this demographic with. And I'm showing you here before and after picture of a building that we identified and we ourselves rehabbed in order to actually service this demographic. I would be remiss to say that, you know, in order to do this, in the historical makeup of the Nicetown CDC, when I referenced the fact that these experienced people that came together, of course, formulated our structure, and which were our board of directors, and gave us the ability to utilize in this beginning funds from our own pockets in order for us to be able to develop this particular property here and service this area. And understanding the demographics of this geographic area, we knew that we would have to provide services and various other resources to this population that would assist them in order to rebuild the actual individual by looking at that data and understand what the needs of that population would be. And so we actually created these programs, and these programs in effect serviced this population and was able to understand what the needs were in order to go about bringing better and more effective development. And in doing this, we had to plan. And we developed a series of plans throughout the early beginnings. And these plans gave us the ability to do the research and the development that would identify potential partners that we knew in the future we would need as we targeted various locations and various spaces in order to present and provide the necessary product that we would need for the development of this community. And as you can see here, these plans here were in a series of 10 years. And these plans here, of course, we identified parcels. It also identified commercial corridor improvement. It identified various spaces that we wanted to utilize for bridges and gateway. We also identified needs for transit, things that would assist with transit orientation, and an overall economic and development plan for, again, housing, programmatic programs, recreation. This map here really gives us a visual of the targeted area that we identified. And in your areas, wherever that may be, starting with your hub, as we identify with the community center, you would be able to, you branch out from that point and see the various locations and target areas that are necessary for your developments, whether they are commercial corridor related, whether they're housing related, whether they are recreational, and whether they're religious in concept, and those things. So you can see this map with the legend here, identifies those particular areas that we have targeted for development. One of those particular areas was an anchor development called Court 1. I think, yes, Master Muhammad had the opportunity to come down and do a walkthrough of this particular development. This particular development here was a $15 million development. As you see in the before photos here. It was a depressed, dilapidated, vacant property that was there for over 30 years in that shape. And we transformed that into this property here that houses 37 affordable housing units, rental, with 6,000 square feet of commercial at the street level.
Mm.
In that particular property, and during the feasibility study, which I showed earlier, and the needs that this particular community, our community, Nicetown in Philadelphia, needed, we targeted particular anchor tenants as well that would, house these spaces for the actual delivery of service to the population of this area. And we were fortunate enough to partner with Temple University here and put a full service clinic at the anchor location here at the corner at the street level that serves this whole community that we identified here. Our second anchor development in this transit-oriented gateway was Court 2. And this particular development was a $25 million development. It has 50 townhomes and 10,000 square foot of commercial space at the street level, which we put a restaurant here at the corner, which is the Muhammad Kitchen that services this community as well. A part of our development strategy right now is another area in the Logan area, which we're doing a recreation center. This is a $10 million development, and it's transforming a whole recreation park that will also service the community for recreational development here. And these are the partners that, throughout this development, throughout this tenure that, we have identified, and through various forms, requests for proposals, requests for information, that have responded to us in all of these developments throughout the years, in 20 years, to give us, a choice of who would be able to assist us in the overall development of the Nicetown area. So this will end my presentation.
Okay.
And if there's any questions, I look forward to them.
Yes, I had the privilege of coming to Philly and walking through. If we could take this down just for now. Zach, let me ask you this. Is this community ownership, private ownership? How is this? Is this owned by the community, this project?
Well, some of these projects are owned by the community.
Okay.
Which is, of course, the Nicetown CDC.
Okay. And so can we take this down, Zach, just so that we can?
Yep, I'm trying to.
And so were these private investors by the community? Were these community members that came together to put their money together to purchase the first of the properties? Is that how it worked? Or and the reason I'm asking you is because there are other communities that want to duplicate this, and so they're just trying to decide how they want to set up their structure. Do they want private investors, families that might come together to purchase some land? Do they want? Is this a community-driven project? Like, how does this work?
For this particular endeavor, this is all community driven, community related. We did establish a property management company that manages these properties in some of these developments, But in this particular setting, as you know, I thought the title depicted was all community partner related and for community development.
And
So none of this is private.
I see. And so one of the viewers is asking, how was these buildings purchased? They were purchased in partnership with the list that you put up, some of the partners on there. How are these properties acquired? Was it donations from the community? What, you know, how did you get started?
That's a very good question. A lot of these properties were purchased at minimal cost. That's the transfer cost that were actually transferred to us from government agencies, whether they were owned by the city of Philadelphia or various counties in the area. That's mainly how most of these properties were purchased. And some, if they were individually owned, that actually gave us the collective parcel land banking, then we would borrow the money in order to bring that together in a collective way for it to be a total development.
And how important is a feasibility study with a project of this size? How important is that to a community that's looking to develop a project?
Very important, because you need to know the makeup of the community in order for you to do the development. For instance, Corp 1 was a low-income housing tax credit project, and the average median income, which I showed on in the data, showed you the level of income that those particular individuals qualified for. So you want to make sure that in your study that you draw that out of the actual study in order for you to produce the product that would be able to service that particular population.
And your board, so you have a CDC. Is the CDC responsible for this? Is this properties under the CDC?
A lot. Some of the properties are owned mainly by the equity partners, the formulation of the corporation that you build with your partner.
Okay.
And then at the end of the actual equity term, more than likely, the CDC has the ability, as what we call the first position, to actually buy the partners out. And once those partners actually, through the term of that particular development, receive all of the actual dividends that they were, or shares of that they would receive, and the first position would be with the CDC.
What was the first project that you built? The very first project. What was the first one? Was it the housing piece?
The community center.
The community center.
The community center
consisted of what? What was in the community center?
That community center houses the NAC that I showed you that delivers those service programs, and that is a property that's solely owned by the CDC. There are various properties, what we call scattered properties, that are out there that was in the map that we own.
Right.
But the scale developments, the 37 unit development, the 50 unit development, those are partnered ownership developments that has equity partners. And the CDC has the first position once all of the everything is done throughout the term of the equity position, to have the position to purchase the ownership.
So over the years, you have acquired these number of partners, but when you did your first project, how many partners did you have?
We had basically the board
Yes.
and business people as myself. And I would say, as my first picture described, as a business person, we would have to guarantee everything in terms of, the projects. And so the first project and several other scattered projects, we ourselves purchased.
I'm kind of focusing in on the first only because you got to take the first step before you get to those other additions that you have shown. The project has grown tremendously since we took a walk through. And so I'm just trying to focus in on that first one only so that the viewers and the other communities who are approaching their first project can kind of get a feel of what it was that you did in Phil, or what the committee did in Philadelphia. I have one more question for you, and then we're going to go to Ihsan and then come back to you because we have a slew of questions. When you say we, who is we? Who is that? Who is we?
The we is my family and the board and the board of directors. When I say we, the community development company,
Okay.
I'm the founder.
Okay.
I am the founder and president and CEO of the company.
Okay.
But I do not own the company because the company is public.
Right.
And so, but we have, when I say we, my family and some of the other board members, we help to manage. We help to manage those properties in terms the scale properties that are in this on our portfolio.
I got it. And are these 10 other board members? Are they members of the of Masjid Allah, where you are?
No.
Okay.
No, and that's a very good question and a segue. Masjid Allah is a separate component.
Oh, okay.
Is a very separate component than Nicetown CDC. And we help to establish and build and develop Masjid Allah and set up Masjid Allah CDC, which is titled Medina, the Medina CDC. But again, I wanted to show a track record, a 20-year track record, and a credible foundation that would enable those individuals that are out there to establish an entity that would attract potential partners. And masters may have that ability to do so because of their demographic, the members. And so when you just look at the marriage of masjid with its members, that membership is the demographics that they would do the same thing that we've done, providing those service deliverables, doing the outreach to that particular target community that where the masjid is. And of course, knowing what the needs of the members are in order to develop particular things that they need, such as affordable housing, senior housing, and commercial corridors, and business strips, and community centers, and things of that nature.
And so and yeah, there are a multitude ways of creating partnerships, and it doesn't necessarily have to reflect the masjid, but there are business people in the community that, and this is what essentially you're saying, is that a group of business people got together and created Nicetown, which is an amazing project. But you still are very much committed to helping and building and providing for Masjid Allah in whatever way that you can that is acceptable, I guess, to your board. Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any properties that are in partnership with Masjid Allah?
No, we don't. But I
Okay.
will say that we are the first partner of Master Law.
Yes,
I would say that we had a philosophy where we made a decision to take the masjid outside of the masjid and to the community, and develop a CDC in a targeted area that's on the northern side of Master Law, and develop that area, and then come back. It's almost as if we went to Medina and then came back to Mecca in order to establish Mecca.
got it. I got it. And again, I'm not trying to delve too deeply into the relationships between the communities, because one of the contractors said yesterday, he buys houses in Greensboro for $15,000. Well, we told him he'll never find one in Washington, D.C. for $15,000. So we realize that every area has its own dynamics and its own way of functioning, and you're bringing out one. The viewers heard another one yesterday, the relationship between Masjid Muhammad and Banneker, which are partnering on the Clara. So we're going to move to Ihsan for him to make his presentation, and then we're going to come back to you, Zach, because we do have some more questions that the community is asking in order to better understand how to duplicate what you guys have done down in Philadelphia, which is phenomenal. Thank you.
Okay.
Ihsan?
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. And again, thank you for accepting to be a part of this. We know you as a very successful business person in property ownership. So why don't you just kind of give a brief background about yourself so people who don't know you can know you, and then put your presentation up.
Sure. And the presentation does a bit of the background, but just briefly, born and raised in the community, sort of second generation. Parents converted, went to Worth Imam High School in Atlanta, graduated from there in 2004, and then went to Morehouse, and took about 7 years to get through there. Took some time out to do some entrepreneurial things, and finished with a degree in accounting. Went and worked on Wall Street for a couple of years, at Deutsche in New York and in London briefly. And after that, went back to Atlanta, and for the last, I guess, 8 years, I've been focused on investing in real estate there. So that's my background. So I'll go through this presentation. Does this come up okay? Can everybody see this okay?
Naima, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it hasn't come up yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So share screen, and then you'll click the box. Yep, here we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. So really responding to the prompt, I think the description was wealth building through multifamily ownership. Was that?
Yes.
That it? So really thinking about that pretty directly, thinking about wealth building through investing in multifamily properties. So this is kind of a presentation that is mostly something that we would kind of give to prospective investors to sort of outline the business, outline the strategy. So again, just a little bit more context. So my company over the last 8 years has invested about 50 million of equity, acquired about 2,000 units, about 10 transactions, and we're vertically integrated in that we do our own investment, construction, and property management. So this is kind of elaborating on that. That's been an important component for us because it acts as a risk mitigant, allowing us to really control these different components of sort of different components that contribute value to a project, and has been important for us to be able to sort of control that ecosystem. I think So my business really focused on workforce housing. So that's sort of not the people who wouldn't really qualify for a lot of what Brother Zach was talking about, or what Omar was talking about yesterday. This is kind of working class people, sort of above low income, but certainly not the affluent. And it's been it's a large swath of the population, probably the biggest group of the population. And this page really just highlights just some of the rationale, why we kind of focus there. Just thinking about sort of the upward trend of rental prices. There's generally just a shortage of affordable housing that's not sort of through public subsidy. That's just kind of, they call it naturally occurring affordable housing. And for a long time, it's been tough for people to really qualify for mortgage loans. And so it's just a strong market that has a lot of positive tailwinds associated with it. Our general approach has been to acquire properties at a discount to their intrinsic value, so below what it would cost to replace them. So if something cost, this varies per market. In Atlanta, it might be $150 a square foot for 1,000 square feet. So that's $150,000, maybe some sort of average for a residential property. So we would try and buy things, if it costs $150 to build it new, we would be trying to buy them for $50, $60 a square foot. And in that, you kind of capture some margin immediately. So that was a big part of our underwriting criteria is making sure that something is sort of below its intrinsic value. Typically, these things have some distress, and they're vacant, they're not renovated, and so we would go in and make really extensive improvements to the property to further increase the value. And then after the property's been improved, re-tenanting it, bringing in new people, increasing the cash flow by leasing up the property. And then ultimately, once multifamily is what they call stabilized, meaning that it's been sort of greater than 90% occupancy for more than 90 days, you can go and get permanent financing on that property, and very often pull out a lot of the capital that you put into the property. You can take that capital back out. And so you end up with residual ownership of an asset. You have liquidity because you've refinanced and taken the money out, and you still, via the ownership, participate in the ongoing appreciation and the cash flow that the property generates. So that's the business model in a nutshell. There's a lot in that, but that's the business model. So said differently, we aim to buy right and add value. So about 50% of the profit that we expect to make, we think is made, or more, is really made just from buying right, just from finding a unique situation. Got a slide that kind of talks about that here. Very, very often we're focusing on the sadder portions of society in terms of bad situations like short sales, foreclosures, REOs or bank-owned properties, tax liens, estate sales, bankruptcies. This is the focal area for us, trying to find things that are in some sort of messed up situation or in a messed up condition, and as a result, we can acquire it for a good price. If somebody has all the capital in the world, everything's fine in their life, they'll just put it out to market and wait forever to get the best price that they can. But somebody who's going through some sort of something that causes them to really value speed and certainty of selling the asset over the price of the asset, that's really where we want to play. And we really try to offer that person certainty. So we say, look, we're going to buy quick, cash, not play around. You'll be able to get out of this thing quickly. So the other portion of sort of the investment strategy is the adding value. So that's the construction, being able to go and actually improve an asset, and sort of forced value creation by improvements through construction management. So this is the sort of value chain. And this just kind of, you know, further elaborates on there, just this cycle of sort of a non-performing asset going in. It's been acquired at an attractive purchase price, you know, financed properly, physical and cosmetic rehabilitation, cost management in terms of the operations. Typically, our property is about 200 units. 200 units, average rent's about $1,000. So you're collecting about $200,000 a month, about 2.4 million a year. About half of that is being spent on operations. So you're spending about 1.4 million with different vendors. Alhamdulillah, I've been able to spend with a lot of vendors in our community. But you want to control those costs to make sure you've got a healthy margin left over, and ultimately can you know, distribute capital, service your debt, make a profit. It's kind of just our timeline of acquiring assets. Purchased our first property in 2011, our last one in 2017. I'm on a bit of a personal sabbatical right now, so not really very active. But just this sort of just further elaborates on those properties that I mentioned in the bar chart. Let's see. So this is a case study of a particular deal. This was
So wait, before you go on, go back to that the previous. So these are multi-family.
These are all apartment complexes, all multifamily.
And
Yeah,
and
so
this is
the
about
count is here, second column on the left.
I see right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So the maximum one you have is 436 units.
Yeah,
Is that
it's been
okay.
sold at this point, but yeah.
Okay. And okay, I got it. All right then. You can go on.
Yeah. So so this drills down into one of those rows, right? So this is the 436 unit one. This was acquired in 2014 in November. Very messed up situation. There was a governmental entity that had a loan on a property, National Cooperative Bank, and that government entity did not want to foreclose on the property, a working class property. They didn't want the publicity associated with it, but the property hadn't paid the mortgage for years. The government entity decided to auction the loan off. We participated in the auction and were the successful bidder. I always feel bad in the auction because it just means you paid more than everybody else. But it was a good price. It was a good time. So we bought the property with a group of investors for $6 million. Bought the loan rather with a group of investors for $6 million, I think. And then I'm trying to see here, yeah, acquired 6.1 million. And then proceeded to renovate the property with another 4.5 million. So that's about 10.6. And then in 2017, sold the property for 23 million. So it's about 11 million of profit from that deal over about a 3-year time span. But very, very unique, very messy situation. You know, not a lot of people who really were comfortable stepping in and buying a loan and then having to go through the foreclosure process. There's a lot of delays that can happen with the borrower that can stop you from foreclosing. But we did some work with the community to kind of mitigate that risk around the foreclosure being delayed and us being able to take control of the asset. So really, it was an inevitable situation. So we tried to be the most friendly sort of buyer possible, and we're ultimately sort of selected by the community to buy them. That's really why we got in position, because the community saw us as the best alternative. And that's a consistent theme, I think, throughout probably many of our the speakers' presentations, is that a lot of this is very relationship driven, very community driven, especially for us. So as Black folks, this is just some pictures of that property. We did a community farm there, one of our first community farms. Beautiful initiative. So yeah, just some additional case studies. I won't go through all those. This is sort of the most recent project, Limrose Gardens. Just I'll show some pictures there.
Is any of this property yet, these multifamily properties, is any of it dedicated to seniors?
No, none of ours are dedicated to seniors. they're just general market.
Okay, I just wanted you, that's fine, go ahead.
So yeah, no, I think that really concludes it. Happy to take any questions, but yeah, that's the gist of it.
So this is amazing, of course, no, continue. If you're finished, you can take your screen down, but I certainly, please explain to us what's going on here. This is beautiful.
Yeah, so this is a community we own still, where we've sponsored a lot of social programming. So every Friday we would have, pre-COVID, would have a different educational vendor come to do programming with the kids. So this is Serena Muhammad, my cousin, who has an organization called Science Creations, where she does really exciting science experiments with the kids. And so, yeah, every Friday, she really started, she was our first vendor. And then we kind of broadened into, we have a chess person, a robotics person. I'm forgetting, this is pre-COVID. But every Friday for a couple of years, we're doing this. And hopefully after COVID, we'll be able to do it again. But yeah, that's this picture here.
Great. If you're finished, you could take your screen down. So I have to put you on the spot a little bit here. I need to know, at what age were you? First of all, did you graduate from Claire Muhammad, isn't that correct?
I graduated from WD. I probably went to Claire Muhammad when I was little. But yeah, the Claire Muhammad school system, certainly. Yeah.
So how old were you, Ihsan, when you acquired your first property?
First property, I think I was 19.
19?
Yeah, it was a house, a single family house.
And was it a group of you? Was it,
my siblings, me, my older brother and older sister, we pulled together to buy a property.
I'm not hearing him well, Naima. It might be me, but for some reason he's echoing on my end. I would like to also ask you, when did you know that you were interested in real estate or purchasing property? What was it that let you know that this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I've been interested in business for as long as I can remember. I've always had different businesses, and I think in Atlanta, some of the more successful people in the community financially were in real estate. And I attached myself to them and tried to learn from them as much as I could. And that just became sort of a bridge into an industry that had a lot of opportunity. And I haven't exhausted the opportunity in it yet. So I've kind of stayed there. And it connects to some of my other passions around art and aesthetics, early love for architecture. So it kind of converges on a few different things for me, but I think it a lot just opened up a path of just business opportunity in it, and it just kept going. So I kept going with it.
How many people do you employ right now?
Right now, probably about 12. At our peak, about 75. But again, I'm kind of not very active right now. So.
And I'm hearing more about distressed properties in terms of I heard this yesterday in one of the brothers that purchased his property. He was saying how, but all of your properties are in Georgia. Is that correct?
I have a few in New York, but mostly in Georgia.
Yeah, and so Georgia is a very different market. Is that correct? So what would you, for those who are interested in purchasing properties in the same manner that you are, what would you suggest that they look for? Because like in DC, you don't have foreclosures like that or distressed properties, or you just don't have that. It's too competitive.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, markets are very different, and there's certain markets like New York, where New York has some distress, but very often what people are what they're underwriting to, what they're basing their investment decisions on is growth. It's appreciation. And for certain markets, just because of the strength of the market, you can really bet on it. You can bet on a certain amount over longer periods of time, maybe not within a year or 2 or 3, but over 5, 10-year spans, you can bet on a certain amount of appreciation, and you have been able to for the last 70, 80 years. And certainly DC is a market like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think people they're probably not getting as much distress, but they're trying to buy in the path of growth. They're trying to buy in areas that are going to be developed more. And sometimes they're just doing ground up development, right? So they may not have as much physical existing structures that are distressed, but maybe there's land and you can build a new project, you can do ground up development. I think really tight markets, you see a lot more development. I operate in markets within Atlanta that you don't see ground up development. It's not really economically viable without public subsidy coming in. You couldn't really do ground up development in the markets that we're in.
It appears that most of the properties you're buying, you're holding, you're keeping.
No,
Oh, no?
we trade. So we've sold 90%.
Mm.
Yeah.
But these multi-family properties, most of those you are renovating and then keeping?
No, we renovate and then sell. Usually about 3 to 5 year holds.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to you. Imam Bilal is here. So we're going to get his presentation, and then we're going to come back and ask more questions from the viewers who are watching. Imam Bilal, thank you, Ihsan. This has been great. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you? It's so nice to see that background that you have that I couldn't get Ihsan and Zachariah to put on, but it looks lovely, doesn't it, Ihsan? But thank you. We're so happy to see you. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well, Give the tardiness. I just got done speaking all day, so. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? Where you're located anyway. And then you can put your presentation up, and we'd love to see it.
Yeah, sure. I'm from this community, born and raised, and I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. So KC's home for myself. I was an assistant imam for a number of years, and was a resident imam as well too. And but also seeing the need of just really, just learning financial education, how important that is, particularly for us as a community and us as a people. And for the last 6 years now, I've traveled around the country, and I help educate and teach other people. I consider myself a family man first, a community member, a student, maybe somewhere down the line, I'm an investor, and I just want to share what this has really done for me and for my family and for our community, and to be able to help other people do the same thing. So
We appreciate it. We're ready whenever you are.
So, sure. Let me see here. Share screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, for me, I thought about, okay, well, how should I, kind of cover this? And I have 20 minutes, right? About 20 minutes?
You have up to 20
okay.
minutes.
I'll try to get through it as much as I can. But Allah tells us in the Quran, seek the destiny. However, don't forget your share of this material world. And our Imam talked a lot about that significantly, and it already really resonated to me, this particular ayat. And when I think about the American dream, unfortunately, it hasn't become a reality for many people who haven't come from generational wealth. And if you're like most American families, you play the game Monopoly at some point in your life. And I was recently playing with my children. I have 2 children, a daughter, Zaina, son, Yusuf. And we actually play quite often. And I was it got me to thinking something. I was thinking about imagine playing Monopoly and never buying anything. Never acquire anything that would produce rents or, any cash flow or anything like that. Like all you do is just go around the board and you just collect $200 for passing go. And I was thinking about like, this is how most people live their lives. And, whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to kind of really pause and reflect. And so I started to think about like where I see, kind of most people was. So I'm gonna kind of give a different perspective. I thought that, hey, instead of just me talking about what I've done and myself, it's really about you all, like what you can see yourself doing and how this possibly could benefit you. So to kind of give yourself a different viewpoint and everything like that, we've been taught really all of our life to work hard, right? We're extremely hard workers. We work very hard in what we do. But we really necessarily haven't been taught to have our money work hard for us, right? Typically, we're working hard for our money. And, the term, working smarter usually kind of gets thrown around a lot. And for most people, I don't think we really kind of take the time to see like what that really, really means. And so I think, take some time to kind of talk about that. And so when I look and I see that, I don't care whether you're, it's 10 people in your home, whether it's 1 people in your home, or if you have a business, even our government, for the most part, we all have a financial statement. So we have a financial statement, and we have something that's called income, we have expenses, we have assets, and we have liabilities. Now, most people, in order to achieve some type of income, they need something to bring in income. And for most people, it's called a job. So that job brings in income for them. However, they have other responsibilities, things that are called liabilities. And those liabilities consist of maybe a mortgage or a rent, maybe a car payment, things like maybe credit card bills to student loans, etc. And what happens is we have money that comes in from our job income, but because of these liabilities, we have expenses that go right out the door. And we get caught doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like we're in this race. You all familiar with this race, what it's called, and is known as the rat race, right? So we get caught doing the exact same thing. However, there's other people who take the time to really get educated, specifically financially, and their financial statement, looks a little different, right? They also have a financial statement, also have income, they have expenses, they have assets, they have liabilities. They may have a job, so there's nothing wrong with having a job, because a job can be good sometimes, but they don't just rely specifically on a job. They're always looking for having multiple streams of income. But so instead of relying on a job, they take their earnings and they invest it in things that are assets, like a business, or things like maybe precious metal, like gold, silver, stocks, real estate. And those assets produce income for us, all right? But this income is different. It's income's called passive income. Now, when your passive income, when it's greater than your expenses, then that's what is called freedom. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're wealthy or you're rich or what have you, but it does mean that you're free. It means that if you choose to, you don't necessarily have to work for the rest of your life because it's more than your expenses. And when I looked at and I started studying, I started looking, I started to see that certain statistics where most people feel like they can never get to this point right here. And there was a statistic that really just kind of hit me in the face, and it said that 95% of Americans at the age of 65 can't retire. Now think about that for a second. 95% of Americans who are 65 can't retire. We're talking about the wealthiest country in the world, that 95% of Americans can't retire. So I started looking at, even from a retirement standpoint, like if we look at traditional retirement planning, and if I ask maybe like say 100 people out there on the street, and I ask them, what methods are you looking to do to retire, right? They may jot out some things like, oh, I have an IRA, I have a 401k. If you're lucky, maybe you have a pension, which most people don't even have any days nowadays. And those things are invested in things like in the market, right? So it's typically invested in the market, like stocks, mutual funds, etc. And if you ever watch a documentary that is called The Retirement Gamble, or read a book by Tony Robbins that's called The Mastering Money book, that you'll learn that the average fees that financial institutions charge you, on average, they charge 3.19% to manage your money. Now let's illustrate this let's see what that really means, right? So let's say that your money is making a 77% ROI in the marketplace. Well, you're getting charged 3% fee from your financial institution. So that leaves you with a 4% return, all right? Now, if we're making 4% on this money, well, guess what? We still have to pay taxes on that money, all right? Now, let's say you may fall in a 25% tax bracket, and 25%, four quarters in a dollar, so that's 1%. So 1% on that means that net, we're making 3% net on our money. Now, let's say if you worked all your entire life, you've been working for the last 30, 40 years or so, and you saved $1 million at 3% return, well, that's making you approximately $30,000 a year. Well, I'm not sure where you guys are located at. I'm in Kansas City. I invest in Kansas City. I invest in Tampa, Florida, do some things in Dallas, San Diego, about to doing some things in Georgia. But where I'm from, you can't really live the quality lifestyle that you want to off of $30,000, right? One that one really truly desires, living a lifestyle that one really wants to do. You probably need at least, I don't know, maybe $120,000 a year. So that's $10,000 a month, right? To live a quality life that you really want to do, travel, give back to the community, whatever that looks like. So if we say $120,000 a year, well, if we're only making $30,000 a year on our money, so we have to times that by 4 to get $120,000 a year, right? So, and 4 times 1 million, that equals $4 million. So that's a little algebra from high school. Does us some good sometimes. So 4 million at 3% gets us $120,000 a year. And you get you $10K a month, all right? Now, if you want to make $10,000 a month in retirement, all you need to do is save $4 million. All right? If you want to retire 10 years from now, all you need to do is save $400,000 a year plus pay for your bills. If you want to retire in 20 years from now, all you need to do is save $200,000 a year plus pay for your bills. If you want to retire 40 years from now, all you need to do is save $100,000 a year plus pay for your bills. Again, this is what traditional retirement planning looks like. This is what people do. As a matter of fact, if you think of $120,000, like what would $120,000 even be worth 40 years from now? What was it worth 40 years ago, right? So most middle-class people have been taught to focus on this number. We've been taught to really save money. We've been taught to work hard. We've never really been taught to have our money work for us. And what's really interesting about this $4 million, this number, is that this is what most people tend to focus on. And that's why they kind of put their heads in the sand when they get their 401k statement, because they know if they ever did like a retirement calculator, that they know that they need way, way, way more money than they have in order to be retired, as an example. So the only reason that we need this $4 million is because you're investing in something that is only giving you, again, a 3% return on your money. So wealthy people do not focus on 4 million. Wealthy people focus on what is called your ROI, your return on your investment. It's not about how much money you have, but about how much your money is making for you. Let me say that again. It's not about how much money you have. It's about how much your money is making for you. So let's say we have $4 million at 3%, which is making you $120,000 a year. But a person can also have $1 million making 12% return. It's also make you $120,000 a year. So what is easier? Is it easier to learn how to get a 12% return, which I'll teach you here in a moment, or saving $4 million? Now, if you've been exposed to like some of the training, some education, mentors, books, things like that I've read, then you know that it's absolutely realistic to make it 12% on your money. So you gotta ask yourself again, which is easier, 12% return on your money or working a job trying to save $4 million? Well, most people tell you that it's pretty hard to save $4 million working a job. Wealthy people do not save their way to wealth. They invest their way to wealth. $1 million also, some of y'all may seem a lot of money. Some of y'all may seem like a little bit of money. That really doesn't matter. You can change your expectations. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but this is really about focusing on your pain versus pleasure. Which is more painful? Is it more painful to save $4 million, to give your money to a financial advisor, hope that they will be able to make money for you, or is it more painful, still some pain, but to be able to learn how to make your money make 12% on your money or save $4 million? So let's focus on the 12%. Let's focus on that real quick, and then we'll focus on how we get that $1 million, because the first million is always the hardest. So how do we get 12% on our money? So let's say, as an example, let's say we have a two-family, or what is also known as a duplex, right? And let's say you can purchase this duplex, two-family, for $200,000. Now, again, I know that we live all different areas. Some of us live in, areas that, you may not be able to find a duplex for $2 million or for $200,000, et cetera. Obviously, if you're in Georgia, you can find things like that, Kansas City, et cetera. But the beautiful thing about, when we're talking about rentals right now, the beautiful thing about that is that you do not have to invest where you live at, all right? So let's go with this example, $200,000. If we have $200,000, right, and we have to put down 25%, so you need to invest $50,000. So in a moment, we'll talk about how do we get $50,000. So let's say we have to get $50,000 put down to purchase a $200,000 property. Well, the property, let's say, is rented out for $2,500 a month, okay? Now, not going into the details, but let's say, from all the expenses, mortgage, insurance, taxes, utilities, maintenance, all the things like that, those expenses are, let's say, is $2,000, okay? So every month, those are the expenses on it. So we look at it and we say, okay, well, $2,500 a month is what our rent comes in, $2,000 expenses. Then after all said and done, our positive cash flow is $500 a month, okay? Well, you invested $50,000 and to make $2,500 minus $2,000 expenses to get $500 positive cash flow. So if we were to look at this and we say, okay, well, $500 a month, well, we times that by 12, all right, because it's 12 months in a year, then we get $6,000 a year cash flow on this one property. Well, if we invested $50,000 and we're making $66,000 a year, so what our return on investment would be 12% ROI. So we just made 12% of our money. We invested $50,000 to get $6,000 every year. That's a 12% return on our money. This is what, again, wealthy people look at. They look at their return on investment. They don't focus on cost. They focus on what their return is. So to make a 12% return on your cash flow. However, what most people don't understand about real estate, you're making it 12% on your cash flow. But here's the other thing too. We have this thing, we have $200,000. We have this thing that is called appreciation. So let's say, you know, some areas appreciate more than others, but let's just take the national average, which is 4% appreciation, the national average. So if we look at $200,000, do the math real quick on that, at 4%, then that's an additional $8,000 a year on this particular property. So we just gained another $8,000 just in equity. Now, it's not money that we can actually put in our pocket, right? But as far as equity is something that we can account for. Now, the cash flow is something that we can put in our pocket at 12%, right? So, but you can start to calculate your return on your investment, right? And you look at this and you can see, okay, if I made an extra $8,000 in that equity, divide that by $50,000, that's another 16% on our money, return on our investment, all right? So we got cash flow, 12%, appreciation, 16%. That gives us 28% right there on our money. So this is appreciation. I want you to understand that the house only went up 4%, but it went up on $200,000. So the value of the house became only, you know, with the investment, even though we only invested $50,000, but the appreciation is on a total property. So now it's probably, for some of y'all, it's probably starting to click why, you know, some people, why the wealthy people, you know, invest in real estate, are people who aren't wealthy, but they're going towards wealth to invest in real estate. It's because it's about the great rates of return that you're getting. Now, you also get other benefits, things like depreciation. So in a case like this, let's say $200,000, well, we can't depreciate the whole thing because they take out the land value. So let's say the land value on it was $40,000 was the land value. So that leaves us $160,000. And by law, we can appreciate on residential. It's different than commercial, but residential, 27.5 years, right? So over the next 27.5 years, 27 and a half years, that's how the residential works. You're able to depreciate that. So how does that look like? So that looks like, okay, $160,000 divided into 27.5. Let me get my trusty calculator here on my phone. It looks like $5,818, okay? Now let's say again, if we fall into the 25% tax bracket, so we're looking at $1,454, right? So you don't need to know this like at the back of your hand or anything like that, but just know that owning real estate saves you money on your taxes, right? So what we can do is we can take that $1,454, we divide it by $50,000 that we have in our property that we put in, and from there, it equals 2.9%.
Let me stop you, Brother Imam. So it's, do you teach this?
I do, I teach this, I teach a lot more stuff, but yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So let me stop you here only because we have about 50 questions, and I want to get to you and Ihsan on the questions. It's obvious that this is an asset to anyone who has money looking to invest into property. I'm going to ask you to, let me ask you, can I get you to come to a close with this only so that we could take this down and I can ask you both a couple of questions?
Yeah, for sure. So we're looking at just on this one property, we're looking at a 30.9% return on our money, right? So, and if we look at this from the standpoint of, real quick, if you want to just do the math, we're talking about making, let's say, $10,000 a month. So if we're making $500 per property, well, that just means that we need to look at to purchase 20 rental properties. So if we do that and we say, okay, let's say if I want to retire in the next 10 years, then I need to buy 2 a year. Well, in order to do that, obviously you need to, come up with the money, right? So that's the question a lot of people ask, like, well, how am I going to come up with the $50,000? Well, let's say you flip houses like I do, right? Then you'll be able to come up with $50,000. So when we do looking to do our flips, it's really broken down. I was called the 4 F's, which is how do we fund deals? Then we need to fix them. Well, first we need to find them, then we need to fix them, and then we flip it. All right. So there's many different ways to fund deals. Typically, some people go to lenders, or may go to people even use credit cards, 0%, to what I like to call private lenders, people who are actually have money sitting there in their retirement accounts, etc., looking to get better returns on their money. Find it, realtors, etc., fix it, use contractors, and then flip. Flipping is, yes, you can buy, you can turn it around and sell it. So that way, you can really get big chunks of cash in that case, so that you can do whatever you want with them. But flipping also is we flip the calendar, meaning that we take those earnings that we do on our flips to purchase passive income, and then eventually also to get into commercial, do like commercial syndication deals, etc., which is what sounds like Ihsan is doing as well, for us being sponsors and things like that too.
Can I get you to take the screen down, Brother Imam, because we're getting ready to, I need to ask Ihsan a few questions before he has to leave. And then we're going to come back to you to talk about what it is that you teach. But thank you for this. This is very important so that people can see realistically. Ihsan, I know, is he still with us?
I am, yep.
Yeah, I understand that you have to leave. Zachariah had to leave as well because of his family commitments. His brother just passed. So the audience wants, I'm going to direct a few questions to you before you leave, and then we can go back to Imam Bilal. The audience wants to know, do you do any mentoring?
I do. I can't say I'm the best mentor. I think Brother Bilal is probably a much better teacher than me. But yeah, certainly I'm open to it. I'll give out my email address.
I'm going to go back to Bilal, but because I know you have to leave, I want to direct my questions to you from the audience. The other question is that you're putting up your address or an email now?
Yes. I just posted it.
Okay. Perfect.
Oh, wait, actually, I think I just did that private. Let me do it to everybody.
Perfect. I see a lot of Muslims in Atlanta talking about Glen Rose Gardens. Is this a Muslim community?
It's Muslim owned, but very intentionally not marketed as a Muslim community. Very intentionally marketed as a general interfaith community, if anything. And I've had to kind of correct Muslims in the community about that. It is not a Muslim community. It's Muslim owned. We have a lot of Muslims that live there, but we're very, very, very intentionally interacting with, engaging with, building programming for the broader, really African-American community.
Interesting. Brother Ihsan, Saleem Company, do you have a website that one can review? Can you post that?
Sure, it's very brief. It won't take you long to review it.
Okay.
I just posted it.
Another question for you. Did you use government funding for any of your purchases?
No, I've done some refinances that have utilized Freddie Mac, which is they do a lot of multifamily lending. Pretty robust process to go through their underwriting, but they have really favorable terms. Ultimately, they're making it cheaper for other people to lend. They're really providing like insurance or something for other people to lend. But I've not used any government programs in the way that some of the other brothers have talked about to acquire property. My business model is really sort of just private equity.
Do you recommend using the equity in your residential home to begin investing in income producing properties?
Absolutely. Sure. I did it. I used the equity in my mom's home when I was 19, lost her home, but have since made up for it substantially. I lost her home in the great financial crisis in 2008. But absolutely, I think be prudent, be conservative. Certainly get some experience under your belt as maybe a service provider, as an operator, as a contractor or as an agent. Learn how the business works, and then once you understand it and you've seen some successful deals and you understand what it takes to do it well, then you can add in some leverage. You can borrow some money. You can get a home equity line, but I would never make that the first thing you do. That should be something you do when you really understand, what it takes to have a deal be successful.
What do you think about Islamic banking? In terms of refinancing your home?
Sure.
Or in terms of purchasing a home?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty complex issue. I think that just quickly, if you make riba and interest equivalent, it's going to take you outside of the modern financial system. And I think that there's a lot of, for me, there's a lot of it makes more sense that riba is really more equivalent to usury, which is predatory high interest rates. And there's a lot of debate, and there has been debate since the Prophet, peace be upon him, passed away about the definition of riba. So yeah, that's a really big issue in terms of like what is Islamic banking.
So you don't use Islam. You don't use any. Have you?
I think I use Islamic banking. Yes, I don't use banks that define themselves as Sharia compliant. But I certainly think that what I'm doing is Islamic though. Mm. But it's conventional.
Okay, so you'll go into conventional banks. Yes. Okay. Did you have a broker's license?
Yep, I do. I have an active broker's license. That was a part of how I gained market perspective and knowledge, was serving as a broker, especially during the great financial crisis in 2008. A couple of years leading out of that, I did a lot of brokerage and have represented myself on a lot of acquisitions even though now I really more so engage brokers. Even though I have a license, I allow brokers to really make that fee in a bid to kind of get them to bring me deal flow. But getting a broker's license was a really good step in the journey that I took to learn about real estate investing.
So you advise that, if someone really wants to get into development, purchasing, that they need to really understand or have is it preferable to have a real estate lawyer, or can it be a lawyer who understands real estate?
I mean, at a certain level of sophistication, you're going to have an attorney that focuses on real estate. Just at a certain point, that's pretty early on. Really, you're going to start to have attorneys that really focus in real estate law, because it's a pretty particular thing.
Okay, I know that you have to leave, but you have put your information in where you can be contacted. We make dua for you and your continued success, your new baby, and your wife and your family. One last question. For those who have a 700 credit rating, is there monies that they can borrow where it doesn't require much out-of-pocket investment?
Yeah, I think I don't do a lot of this, but I think for single family residential, I think that, a good score like that will give you access. I think anything kind of over the mid sixes will give you access to, I think Fannie Mae's first time homebuyer programs. And I think that's a 97% loan. So you're just putting 3% down for first time homebuyers. Again, I don't do a lot. I don't do single family, but I do believe that there's some really good financing mechanisms out there for first time homebuyers that will give you 95% plus leverage to buy a home. And that's fixed rate, low interest rate debt, which I think is very beneficial. And for me, Islam. But
I know I asked you how old you was when you purchased your first multi-family, but how large was your first multifamily purchase?
88 units.
So
that was the first multifamily. And the first multifamily I purchased 2011, so 24, 25, but the first single family was purchased at around 19.
Okay, but your multifamily, it was 88 units?
Yes.
Do you still own it?
No. Sold it maybe 4 or 5 years from purchasing it, which is really our business model.
So your business model is within 5 years you sell that property?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years we're typically exiting.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. And that's driven by raising capital. So a lot of times our external capital will want an exit, and to create that exit opportunity for them, we're operating on a timeline.
So
it allows us to churn and kind of keep going and doing more deals. I have a personal portfolio now that's just things that I own directly and don't have partners in, that I'll own, over a longer time horizon and perhaps indefinitely. But yeah, if I'm syndicating capital, that capital typically wants an exit.
So my last question to you, Baltimore is one of those cities that's kind of the last to be gentrified. What are your thoughts on Baltimore?
I haven't spent much time there. It's certainly, it has some room for improvement, certain spots of it. But I think that it has just tremendous anchors. I mean, that region, it being connected to even, the kind of greater, it's part of the DMV. There's just, I think it's inevitable that that market does get gentrified, does get, redeveloped. And we hope that gentrification doesn't equate to displacement, right? Gentrification, the positive aspects of it are the redevelopment and improvement of a community. The negative aspects are displacement. And we can mitigate those negative aspects, especially through forums like this. Imam Bilal's presentation, really enabling people to go out and participate. And hopefully the people who are in those communities participating. But yeah, I mean, I'm long-term bullish on urban America. And I think Baltimore is a great example of that. And it's probably a good place to be looking.
Okay, and just for the viewers, just so people don't kind of bombard you, what would you say would be, for those who the specific areas that they might be interested in would be really worthwhile calling you about? Just to kind of zone in on some things.
Yeah. So my focus is really in Atlanta, for one. And it's really multifamily. I've had people reach out, who are doing different things, even single family. I haven't bought a house in a long time. I really do apartment complexes. It's a particular niche. And so I can be helpful there, but I don't do retail office. I don't do single family. I'm not doing flips. I don't know any of these other things. I'm really pretty focused on multifamily. So questions can kind of stay focused there. And even within that, I'm not doing ground up development. I'm acquiring existing things. I don't build new, and I'm not doing things that are associated with public subsidies. Not a lot of people are doing light techs and tax credits, that type of stuff. So it's just not my space.
So you have I know I keep saying this is the last question. I'm so sorry, Sana. You keep, and Imam Bilal, I appreciate your patience, but Ihsan has to go. So I got to just ask him. So you have a contractor that you work with specifically?
We serve as a construction manager, and even a general contractor, I guess. And we have several subcontractors that we work with, but the scope of our renovations are limited. It's not ground up construction. It's not ground up development. But I do have a group of people that we've worked with for years now.
That rehab your buildings. I
That
mean,
rehab, yeah.
Right. And are some of them total guts?
Sure. Yeah, we've had some properties that were burned units that we really had to go in, gut everything out, do some framing even, and then take everything up from the framing. But that's more so towards the cosmetic end.
Right. So if a community, and I'm just asking this for the community now. So if a community found a multi family dwelling, maybe like 40 units or something, would you would consider helping them to develop it, or give them some advice on how to move forward with at least their first investment and trying to purchase something like that?
Sure, absolutely, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be great. I think that would be helpful for those smaller communities, or any community that wants to, because it's very hard maintaining masjids on donations alone. They need businesses to maintain them. And so I want to encourage any community that is living in an area where there might be multi-family dwellings to come together as a community of investors, and they do have you that they can contact. Brother Ihsan, thank you so much. I will be calling you.
Thank you for facilitating this.
I appreciate this.
Alhamdulillah. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
May Allah reward you all for this effort.
You too, and be safe. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Imam Bilal. We're gonna, Imam Bilal, are you there? Yes. So now we will, so you heard some of the questions that I asked Ihsan, because the key is to get families that do have some capital, but they may not have enough capital, to come together to look for properties that that can be purchased, and then call one of you guys up and say, hey, we found a property, we want to invest in this property, and would you help us in order to make sure that we're taking the right steps forward?
Right, correct.
That makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, they don't have to do a big project like Philadelphia, or a $40 million project that like we're doing in DC, that I might be dead and gone before I see it up, because it is just so massive and so much. But to start out with maybe a multifamily property. So speak to that, Imam Bilal.
Yeah, I think similar to what Ihsan was saying, that because there's a lot of variables that are there when it relates to when you're investing in a particular city market. Like, there's a lot of things that we kind of look at, right? The stability of the city, job growth, because we also do multifamilies as well, but. So we're looking at the whole demographics of the city per se. How many are people moving into that city? Are people moving away from the city? What type of companies that are in that city? Is it a city where it's very diverse when it comes to the different jobs that are there?
Right.
Because all that plays a role if you want to start buying specifically multifamily units, because if people are moving away from it, it's going to be harder to rent your properties out, versus if people are moving into it, maybe rents perhaps will go up. So all those different things you want to look at. So for sure, I'll definitely 100% would give any advice. You know, I always would give a disclaimer at the end of the day. You know, I'm not a financial planner or attorney or anything like that. You know, but these are some things that we do in our company, in our business, and things that I've been taught, and I've shared with other students as well too, to be able to kind of help them moving forward.
So tell us some of the things that you do
Yeah.
that you could help communities that are looking to get on board of this momentum that is happening in our community. Because as I expressed yesterday, there are a lot of development going on in these masjids. And so this idea that we're not doing anything is absolutely insane, because I know of all the progress that we're making. So tell us some of the areas that you could help communities in if they need it.
Yeah, just kind of like we said, when it relates to just how to analyze it. Just a lot of people don't, you know, sometimes they come and they say, oh, I have this piece of property that, you know, I have my eye on, etc., and I want to buy it, but they don't even know if it's a good deal or not. So how to properly analyze a deal? You know, is it already cash flowing? You know, commercial, residential, two different things. Commercial is judged off of the income that it produces, versus residential is judged off of what we call comparables or comps. So if you're looking at a single family house or anything more than 4 units is commercial. So let's say if you're looking at a duplex or fourplex or a single family unit, what have you, which is all residential, well, that's judged off of other homes that are in that specific area, what they have been selling for. So those are what we call comparables. If we're looking at multifamily, you know, if we're looking at commercial now, then it's judged off the income it produces. If there's no income, let's say if the house or the apartment building is completely vacant because it's been dilapidated, well, it's not producing any income. So banks typically won't be very, you know, they wouldn't really want to lend on that property because they want to make sure that there's certain ratio, you know, a DCR where it's at least 1.25, meaning on every dollar that they give me, then there's at least 25 cents left over. So because they want to protect their money as well too. So there's a lot of things that, you know, that are there, which is some things that we could, you know I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I'm sure he feels the same way, that we could be able to help you on and kind of point you into the right direction. Whether we invest in that investment, but there's some things that we can kind of point you in the right direction and say, okay, well, if we look, you know, what are the rent rolls? What do the rent rolls tell you, et cetera? You know, what does the area look like? What are the demographics? All these different things play a lot of part. You know, if you're buying an apartment building right here, but let's say they're building new apartment buildings, you know, 2 blocks down the street, you know, well, that can, you know, have an effect on your apartment building, especially if it's not up to date like the new apartment building down the street. So there's a lot of variables that come along with it, which we can kind of still get kind of point you in the right direction of what you could or could not do.
That is important because many communities are learning to work together and invest together. They're looking for investments and ways to invest their monies in order to do exactly what you said, reach that point of freedom.
Yeah, as you said, which I almost jumped out of my body because you said something that I've been preaching forever, that when it relates to, as a community, we can't stay with the mindset to think that, you know, we have to rely on our donations only to make, you know, our masjids run, to make our schools run, et cetera. We have to start thinking as business people, where we start producing and generating, buying assets. And those assets, well, you know, obviously we want to keep giving zakat, we want to keep giving sadaqah, but we should purchase assets where those assets are producing income for us. Our assets are paying for our schools. Our assets are paying for the masjid, things like that. You know, we have to look at money. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, how we think about money, how we look at money, how we spend money, how we leverage money will produce our financial future. As a matter of fact, how we looked at it up to this point has currently produced where we're at financially right now as well too. So we want that to change. We have to change how we look and how we perceive money. Because if we have money, as an example, that's just sitting in our bank accounts, which some of our mashes do, and some of our homes personally do, we have money maybe just sitting there. Well, we have this thing that's called inflation in our country. And if your money is just sitting there just parked, then your money is actually losing money.
Mm.
So you want your money to continue to be working for you. Like my money has a job. Their job is to go out and make friends and come back, right, with more friends. So you don't want to just have your money just sitting there because you're actually losing money. You want your money, other people, they're always releasing it. And because we've just been taught to kind of hold on to it and save, where we're actually really losing money when we think about it.
So with that said, let me ask you this question. Have you identified any investments that you are looking for? I mean, any projects that you're looking for investors? I mean, in view of the fact that you do this, wouldn't it be a great service, or have you thought about it, or would you think about the possibility of saying, hey, there's a 24 unit that I'm going to purchase, and I'm looking for some investors. I do know that that's a heavy burden because people don't want to lose their money, but investing in a property, a 24 unit property, as you just showed, brings in certain income and doesn't. Have you thought about that?
Well, that's actually what we do. Yeah. So
Okay.
we're a lot more active relates to we buy properties all the time, right?
Okay.
So there's some years more than others, but we buy a lot of properties, and we do a lot of marketing outside of just your traditional going to realtor and things like that. So that's on the residential side, and getting more into the commercial as well too. But with that being said, anytime we purchase a property, I don't use my own money. I use other people's money, and my money is doing other stuff. So we giving, people are always, again, they have money maybe sitting in a retirement account, where there's a 401k and IRA money, and there's, God forbid, a CD, which is not mainly making any returns on their money. So they look at it and say, okay, I can make much better, greater returns, and it's more secure because it's backed by actual tangible asset in real estate, where they're actually becoming an owner of it, specifically if it's a commercial property. So they have a lot of the tax benefits that goes along with that as well too. And anytime we purchase a property, same with Ihsan, same with anybody I'm sure that was on this panel, is that we never, obviously every market is different. Like if you're in Manhattan, obviously it's harder, as he was mentioning, but a lot of markets that we particularly buy, we never buy properties at what the property is worth. We're always buying it at a deep discount. So we're buying it down here.
So are you buying distressed properties as well?
For sure, whether it's distressed, yeah, and distress comes in multiple forms. It could be distress physically, physical property is in distress, but also there are distressed homeowners, meaning that they're maybe in a situation where, they may be going to a foreclosure, what we call a short sale. It may be someone inherited a property. We buy a lot of probate properties, so they may have inherited something that, the kids, they live in different cities, different states, and they inherited something and they just kind of really want to get rid of it. It could be a 20-unit building that was, not managed the best. Maybe they would kind of manage it in themselves. The rents are lower than what they could be renting out for. So we look at, we can do a few things to improve the old characteristic of the building itself, but also we can raise the rents by just tweaking it just a little bit. By raising rents, lowering our expenses, has dramatically improved the actual value of the commercial property itself. And very similar in some, we sometimes our exit strategy may be to get rid of it in a couple of years so we can pay our investors back, Or
Mhm.
we also may just hold on to it as well too. Typically what we also like to do, and then we refinance it so we can pay our investors back, and then we may hold on it for ourselves as for cash flow.
So where can someone see what uh, uh, what kind of projects you're looking at and that you are considering investors? Do you have some kind of website up where, or is it just periodically you send something out? Is it a mailing? I mean, how do you do that? What do you do?
Yeah, we have a website, and I could type it into the thing, but we on our
Please.
website, we don't necessarily put our
Okay.
properties necessarily that we're looking for investors on, but when properties come to us, is usually, we have investors or people who already, come to us and say that they're really interested in, and I usually sit one-on-one, whether it's a Zoom call, et cetera, or even with a group of people, we go more in detail of what that looks like if they were to invest in this particular project, whatever that project was, 123 Main Street, or if they are looking just to lend their money on, maybe as a private lender, what that would look like as well too.
Let me ask you on that note, as a project lender, what is the time period that usually people are able to receive their money back, and what kind of return are they getting on their money?
Yeah, so as a private lender, we typically tell people, expect 12 months, because we like to, under promise and over deliver. So, if I give you your money back in 6 months, then great, right? But if it's, if it goes to 8, 9 months, it really just really depends on the deal, because some deals are, some of the projects that we do are bigger than others. But typically we tell 12 months or less. That's on a private lending standpoint, and it's 12% return. And when it comes to commercial syndication deals, then particularly we're looking to tell people about a 5-year commitment.
And so 5 years, and would they be receiving any kind of income on their money while
We
over the 5
do.
years?
Yeah, they get paid quarterly. They get a statement quarterly on their money, and then they also get a 5-year projection of what their returns would be. So the first year, I'm just kind of, don't hold me to these numbers, but this is just kind of like one of our last deals where the first year maybe something like a 9% return on their money, and then let's say year 2, because we're able to stabilize, do certain things with the rents, improve some units, etc. So that may be more on a 15%. Third year around the same. So when they average it out, you're probably looking at maybe 14-15% or something like that. So this kind of biggest depends.
Do you have anything cooking right now?
We have a lot of offers out. We're kind of negotiating with some different projects right now, but again, we're doing stuff all the time. I'm literally I travel kind of teaching some of this stuff, so I'm actually in Tampa right now, and there's a project that I just completed in Tampa that we just sold about less than a week ago. So we always have things in the mix of what we're kind of doing.
I mean, this program is about growing your personal wealth through property ownership. And so I don't want to leave here today without people without the community feeling that, wow, this is an opportunity, and be able to text you or email you, Imam Bilal, and say, we're interested in your next project. We'd like to know about it. We have, $30,000, $20,000 that we'd like to invest. Is there a minimum?
So I just, let me see, make sure I send it to the right. I think I sent it to Ihsan. I'm sorry. Let me send it to everyone. So I just put my email address in there. So
is there a minimum on investment?
Yeah, so it really kind of depends on the deal, but typically we look for at least a minimum of 50,000 on on a residential. On the commercial kind of varies, usually sometimes 50, depending on the deal, sometimes it can be 75,000. Sometimes you have to be it depends on the particular project itself on a commercial.
if a person told you that their house had about $600,000 worth of equity in it, is this the time to refinance and pull that money out and
Well,
look for? Go ahead.
I would answer this way. I'm not an accountant or attorney,
Yes, yes,
so I would never tell anybody what to do with their own money.
right.
What I can share you is what I do and what other people
Okay.
have done. So let me give you that disclaimer. That here's the thing, just kind of like what we talked about money, right? If you have money that's sitting there, your money is doing two things: is you're either making money or you're losing money. So
Right.
if you have money that's sitting there, it's really, well, it's great to say we all have all this equity in my house, this and that. And it makes us feel good maybe inside, but what is that money actually doing for you? Okay, so you have to ask yourself that, right? So for someone like myself, what I could do is I could maybe take out a HELOC or home equity line of credit, because you have a lot of equity there, and I can take that out and I can maybe lend it out on a deal, or I can, put it into a commercial syndication deal where, and with commercial syndication, you're not doing any work. Like, you're literally using your money and you're investing into the project, and the sponsor is doing everything, right? They're managing the contract, they're doing the property management, or having a property management company, finding the deals and all those different things. So now you can be a passive investor where you're not doing anything, because obviously, this is only a 2-hour event. Obviously, it takes a lot of more knowledge to learn about real estate investing than within 2 hours. That's what anything that in the industry for that matter. But for those who have money, instead of just having the money just kind of sitting there, you can start getting that money working for you a lot better. If I was in their shoes, and I would maybe start to kind of look at it from that perspective, like, what could I do to kind of get this money that just kind of sitting there to start working for me a lot better, faster.
I can't tell you how invaluable this has been. I know I'm looking at the statements that people are writing, that this is wonderful. I mean, the biggest challenge for us as a community is trust, and we cannot afford to lose money. And so, having said that, we stay poor because we are afraid, and our money is not. We are losing money rather than gaining money. So having you and Ihsan, Omar, Lukman, having well, not so much Omar, because he does really big projects, and but you and Ihsan and Lukman, I think that the audience there are going to be couples that are going to be contacting you, because young couples, who need to grow their money and be free, as you said. So I want to give you a couple of minutes to close out, because we're at 7:53, and I do want to encourage people to contact you. So one last question.
Mm-hmm.
So what area are you, I know you say you travel a lot, but what area are you focusing on right now? What is a hot area right now?
Well,
what city is hot right now?
What city is hot? And there's quite a few cities right now that are really, really hot. I tell you, a city that I really like right now is Austin, Texas. Yeah, it's really booming. There's and a lot of there's been a lot of Fortune 500 companies that have came in there. The prices are going sky high. Fords are appreciating like drastically, which also makes it a lot harder to find some of the good deals, better prices. But Atlanta's always been a good area, for its cost, living. Kansas City, even Memphis, Tennessee. When it comes to rental market areas, some areas in Florida, Jacksonville, Tampa. So there's a lot of really good markets rental-wise. Now, if you're looking to like buy and rehab, like flipping now, even some of those markets like a DC, like a, you know, San Diego and things like that, where the cost of living is higher. However, you know, the more risk, the more reward you have as well too, you know. So whereas just as an example, let's say in Kansas City on a flip, you know, buy a rehab, you know, fix it up and sell it. Well, it may make like 40 to 50 grand, you know, on a rehab. However, you know, there's other markets like San Diego or a DC, you know, New York, where the cost of living is drastically higher. Well, you could be making sometimes on your flip 70, sometimes six figures on you know, flipping one house. So so they're all relative as well too. So just because you live in maybe you live in a bigger, you know, more expensive, you know, area, doesn't negate that you can still make a lot of money wherever you live at.
So I know Ihsan said that his focus was on multi-families.
Mhm.
Is your focus on single family homes?
Yeah, so single family is what, you know, I've been investing now for almost like 15 years. So it's been like my number one focus when I got started. I started doing like getting into commercial like 2.5 years ago. I would say that I wish I would have started doing commercial much sooner. But here's the thing, you always want to, you know, there's a saying that's, you know, start with the end in mind, right? What is your overall goal of why you want to invest, right? You know, like even like if you want to get into residential, you want to flip houses and you see all these TV shows and things like that. But
Right.
what's the end in mind? Like what do you, when you make those big chunks of cash, like what are you going to do with it? You know, because obviously you're gonna get taxed on it, where I could take that money and do a 1031 exchange, and I could take that money and divert it into another property. Well, I don't have to pay taxes on that money. Then
Right.
again, you know, I put it on the property and I can refinance, I can pull money out. I'm not taxed on that money when I refinance. So there's multiple different strategies you can do. But at the end of the day, you know, people say cash is king, but it's not cash is king, it's really cash flow.
Right.
Cash flow is what's king, right? And that's what we want, cash flow. That's how you're able to, you know, live the life that you want to, for as not having to worry about. Because here, you know, at the end of the day, like when I get older, like Social Security won't be around when I'm, you know, I'm that age, right? More than likely, right? So you have to think about different strategies that you can do to be able to sustain your life, you know, and also, no matter a lot of, you know, only Allah knows when he's going to take either one of us. So
Right.
we have to look at things too from a standpoint of also how are we going to start building generational wealth as well. So whether something happens to me today or 20, 30 years from now, well, there's assets that are also going to be passed down to, you know, my children, their children, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what it's really about. I think it is about making a priority that we make each generation better
That's
than
right.
what we had.
That's right. It's just that the reason I'm asking you that and really pressing you, and we are going to close, is because I know that, you know, right now we have a lot of organizations in the mass, you know, in our community. You know, we have the sisters groups, we have these groups, we have that group, and you know, and many people do buy stocks, and it would just make sense that if you have groups that want to put their money together, Imam Bilal, that they should call you or call Ihsan and say, hey, we have this kind of money. And then just to get you to begin to think about a way to help them grow their money in whatever city that you might be looking at that you think is a good city to purchase things. But okay, so
I would say this too, like any investing there's risk in it, right? So if someone were ever to tell you, I don't care what it is, I'm starting this new business or I'm starting whatever, there's always risk in anything. So
right.
if someone tells you there's no risk, I would not only walk away from that person, but I would run away. All right. But when we're referring to something like we're talking about taking a calculated risk, meaning that like I believe like this is the best risk adjusted return that you can find in the marketplace, because you're investing in something that is an actual tangible asset, something physically that you can touch. It's a reason why banks will lend money on real estate all day long, right? But if you walk into the bank, you say, "Hey, Mr. Banker, Mrs. Banker, I just, you know, I heard of, you know, that this XYZ stock is about to, you know, boom. Can I borrow some money to purchase this stock?" Well, the bank will laugh you out of the bank, right? So purchasing real estate, obviously people make a lot of money, but also people lose money, right? So it's about, you know, looking at somebody who's reputable and making sure like what are their plans, what are their goals? And again, what makes it so much more secure is that, again, we're not purchasing at the top of the market. We're always buying something at a below cost, low value. So that way we can force appreciation, and we can also, you know, obviously we protect our investors' money, number one. And number two, that's also where our profit lies in it as well too.
I see Guy Riddick on here. He's one of our realtors in Washington, D.C. And I'm just thinking, I'm getting ready to call him and tell him that we want to start looking at some foreclosure houses in certain areas, and because this is really generating that kind of thought. Because we do have some great contractors here in the city that are in the community. So trying to find foreclosures would not be a risk in the fact that we do have contractors that we can work with that would go in and make sure that the kind of money that needs to go into this house to fix it up would allow for a resale in order to gain some money, to earn money. So, you know, on behalf of this community, we're grateful to you. You're one of the, you know, the fruit on our tree, and we're really, this is a community that has been on the move. And I want to just read, I want to give you a moment to, if you have last words, because I want to read something from Imam Muhammad before we close.
Yeah, you know, real estate is like any other industry that's out there. Like if you're in corporate America and, you know, you want to, you know, you're trying to work, you're trying to, you know, get a promotion or maybe increase your earnings or what have you, you know, you got to work up that corporate ladder. And to get that raise or get that promotion or whatever that looks like, you know, it's not just guaranteed, it's not just given to you. You have to like typically do something in order to get it. And if you look at on average, on a national average, you know, a raise nationally is about 3%, right? So if we look at that from a standpoint and say, okay, well, what does it take for me to get a raise? Usually it requires for me, one, I have to stand among my peers in order to get it. And two, I usually have to go and get some additional education, right? Go training, maybe go back to college, maybe attend some webinars, things like this, right? But I have to do something, right? And I get, after all of that, I get rewarded 3%. So let's think about it from a standpoint. Let's say you make $100,000 a year, which unfortunately most people don't. But let's say you make $100,000 a year and you get 3% on your money. Well, that's $3,000 extra a year. You have to actually, it's $3,000 life-changing for anybody in here extra a year? Probably not, right? But if we look at real estate as an example, and I can go out, it takes me getting educated, all right? But I can go out there and I could, you know, buy a property, I can rehab it, I can rent it out, I can, you know, or use my money and be a passive investor and whatever. But as a whole, is a lot greater than 3%. Yeah, so it's really about changing and focusing on from what we've been kind of traditionally taught to going and doing something different and say, okay, well, you know, the old way used to work because we used to, you know, we used to have the golden handshake where our jobs will take care of us for the rest of our life and get a pension and all that. Well, those days are really over. Now it's really upon us to say, okay, because I got my traditional education as well, I went to college, etc. But there's a clearly defined difference between traditional education and financial education. It's so very important for us as, you know, African Americans specifically, but also us as, you know, under our community to start getting financially educated, because there's a different game that's being played. And it's not okay for us just to stay on the sideline. And many of us are doing some things, but there's too many that's not. So let's get in the game. There's a lot of people that are doing some things. And let's get with those individuals. I know myself, Ihsan, and many others would love to be able to kind of share as much as we can. So.
And it is, and I want to just read something from Imam Muhammad, but I do have a short commentary that I want to first, and I want to say thank you so very much to you, Imam Bilal, and all of our second generations Muslims who have grown up in this community, whose parents came through the Nation of Islam, who have been a part of this whole pioneering journey. And I want to just say this community has picked itself up so many times after heartbreak. I remember, we all remember when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed, the pain and the feeling of loss. Allah sent us Imam Muhammad. May he be in the highest place in paradise. We had no idea where he was going to take us. With sincere hearts, we followed him, seeking a better understanding of God, and we were willing to go the length. And as a result, he led us to universal al-Islam. Then Imam Muhammad passed. Again, we were feeling pain and loss. The naysayers criticized us because Imam Muhammad decentralized us. No one leader, they said. How will you sustain yourself without one leader? Little did they know that the seeds had been planted, the orchards had sprung, the buds had burst through, the flowers were growing, the fruit is sweet, and the yield are students of Imam Muhammad, like you, Brother Imam, followers of Prophet Muhammad, pioneers, men, women, second, third, and fourth generation of gifted, scholarly believers in all fields of study. I will end with words from Imam Muhammad. May he be in the highest place in paradise. Rab is the attribute that means the one who forms a thing from the very beginning, who develops that thing stage by stage until it reaches the desired goal and provides for it all that it needs. Its continued existence. The one who is most worthy of our worship is the one who has been working on us from the very beginning, fashioning us and developing us to completion. And that is what this community is experiencing. And we are doing exactly what we have been taught to do, and that is to strive to be believing Muslims. If you would close us out, Brother Imam, with prayer, we will end this discussion.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much, sister.
Oh, thank you.